Howdy y'all! Today I'm going to be walking through how to make a switch track in Ultimate Coaster 3. To start out, I'm going to assume that y'all know the basic game editor and the layout. However, I will still explain what to do and where to go. If you want a better video or tutorial regarding the NURBS editor, which I will be using in this video a lot, check out the video made by Asterix in the description. I'm also going to put a link to the Ultimate Coaster Discord server in the description as well. Feel free to join the server to share your creations, ask any questions, and stay updated on the game. Now, we're on to the tutorial. Alrighty, so the first step is to actually place down your coaster and the station, as you can see here in the video. You'll need to go to the Edit tab at the top in order to get started. Once you complete the station, go ahead and open the Coaster Settings tab right there and scroll over to the Parts tab, which you can see right here in the video. Go ahead and click on it. You're going to see a folder marked Group 1. In the Settings tab, go ahead and rename this to Static. Once you name the folder, click OK. Under the static group that we just made, you will see Part 1, which is the track segment we are currently building with. Go ahead and rename this part as Starting. The names here are arbitrary, however, it will help a lot with organization later down the road. Once you complete that, create the section of the coaster up until where you want the switch track to be. Here is a little time lapse of me building the rad. Alright, once you have a starting track that you like, go back to the Coaster Settings tab, scroll over to the Parts tab, and create a new group using the Add Group button. We are going to rename this group as Dynamic. We are only doing this so we can organize our roller coaster into the non-moving and the moving segments. Alright, so next, click on the Dynamic group that you just made, click Add Part, and then click the Settings tab on Part 1. I am going to rename Part 1 as S-Bend. This will be the piece that gets the coaster train onto the launch segment. Go ahead and click Edit on the S-Bend part that we just made to begin creating the actual transfer piece. Next, set the anchor point to the final segment of the starting track. There should be a diamond icon that connects the two segments. Click Finalize to create the transfer piece. Using the Segment Edit Mode tool in the bottom left corner, make sure to set the segment type to Standard. Alright, so now we can build our first switch track piece. You can have the segment have banks or turns if you wish. Also, do not click Finalize yet. The next step we're about to do is really important. We need to give a variable name to the segment we're making right now. Enable the Segment Editor Mode tool. In the bottom left corner, click the Advanced Settings button. I am going to give the segment the name S-Bend. You can technically rename it to whatever you want, but you need to literally remember what you named it. Alrighty, now we are going to start the actual launch segment of the coaster. Go to the Coaster Settings tab, scroll over to the Parts tab, and open the Static Group folder. When you open the folder, go ahead and click Add Part. Under the Settings tab, rename Part 2 as Main. This part will be the main track of the coaster. When you are done renaming the part, click Edit on the main part and set the anchor to the final node of the switch track segment that we made from before. Here it is the yellow track, and then click Finalize. Now we will build a simple launch segment. Make sure to set the segment type to Launch. After you make the launch segment, we're going to edit the properties. Select the launch section in the segment edit mode and set the launch mode to Swing Plus. We might have to modify the launch speed and acceleration later. After making sure that we're still editing the main part segment, go ahead and build the rest of your layout. Alright, just for fun, I'm going to do a really southern voice line, which probably isn't that much different from my actual regular speaking voice. Right here's a little time lapse of me building the ride. Okay, I'm sorry, I just really wanted to do that. Regardless if you make a full circuit track, which is a coaster that returns back to the station, or if you make one that is not full circuit, like the one shown in the video, we still need to include a block break section somewhere in the ride. If we do not add a block break section, the ride will not cycle properly. In order to add a block break section, go ahead and switch the mode to segment edit mode. Again, if you're unfamiliar with switching the modes or adding break runs or doing different sections, there will be resources in the description of the video. But you can still kind of like watch the video and kind of like guess what I'm doing as well. So here I switched the segment to break, and make sure to enable block section, which is right there on the left side of the screen. Alright, this following part might be a little tricky as we need to create multiple new segments that create the switch track. First, we're going to make the switch track segment that connects the launch to the spike. While we didn't make the spike just yet, we're making this piece now to make the process easier for us later. Alright, go back to the coaster settings tab, scroll over to the parts tab and open the dynamic group from before, and click add part. We will rename part 2 as straight. Alright, now click the edit button next to the straight part we just made and move the anchor node to the start of the main track segment. Here it is purple, and click finalize in the bottom right corner. For this current segment, I am using the NURBS editor because we will have to move this piece off to the side later. We are only building it here so we can smoothly connect it to the spike. Again, make sure the segment type is set to standard. Here's another time lapse. After creating the segment, we need to rename the segment a variable name like before. If you're using NURBS like I am in the video, do not click finalize. Change your edit mode to segment and select the track that we just made. So yep, just right here I'm making sure we are selecting the segment. In the bottom left corner, click advanced settings. We will set the segment name as STRT or straight. Again, you can technically rename this to whatever you want. Just make sure you remember when you named it because we will need these names later. Next, we need to make a new segment a track. This will be our spike. Go back to coaster settings, scroll over to the parts tab, open the static group folder from before and add a new part. We are going to rename this part as spike. Now we are going to create the spike segment. Click edit next to the spike part. Set the anchor node to the last node of the straight segment we just made, which is the red track. Click the diamond and then click finalize. Now we can build our spike. Here's yet again another time lapse. Alright, cool. We are all done creating segments for the switch track. We just need to move the red track piece off to the side. Reopen the coaster settings tab, scroll over to the parts tab, open the dynamic group folder and click edit next to the straight part. Now go ahead and move the straight segment off to the side. I use NURBS here, so all I have to do is click multi-select, select all the nodes, and just drag it off to the side, as you can see here. After doing all of this, we can now start coding the switch track. Alright, after creating all the switch track segments, we can now start coding. Open the coaster settings menu and scroll over to the triggers tab. Similar to how we made a static and dynamic folder in the parts tab, we are going to need to make several folders in the trigger tab. The first trigger we will add will reset the switch track code. First, we need to create a trigger folder. Click the add button and a new trigger folder should pop up, right there. It should say add start. Open the trigger folder and click the add action button. You should see a new line of code. The number on the left is called the index, the word next to the index is the action type, and on the very far right is the settings tab. In the settings for this first command, we're going to change the action type. Set the action type to evaluate expression. In the expression line, put a 0. In the set variable line, create a variable name. For this tutorial, I'm going to name this variable as pass. The name you choose is arbitrary, however you will need to remember the name of the variable. That is all we need for this code segment, so go ahead and click OK at the bottom. The second trigger we will add will connect the launch to the spike by moving the straight segment into place. Under the Trigger tab, click Add Trigger to add a new trigger group. In the Settings tab for the new group, change the trigger type to on-train exit segment. Now, remember what we named that S-bend piece in the Advanced tab? In the Add Segment tab, right here on the screen, put whatever name you named that S-bend piece from before. Earlier, I named the piece S-bend, so I'm going to put that name right there. Open the Trigger Group folder and click Add Action. We will need to make multiple actions in this group, so watch carefully. In the first code line, which has an index of 0, click the Settings button. Set the action type to wait and set the duration to 1 second. We do this in order to make sure the train clears the S-bend before switching the track. Alright, now we need to add another action line which will have an index of 1. In the Settings tab, set the action type to Move Part Group. This line of code will move the straight segment to where the S-bend is. This will connect the launch segment to the spike. Therefore, we need to set the moving end to dynamic.straight.start, which you can see right there. Next, we need to set the target end to static.main.start, which you can see right there. This will move the starting node of the straight segment to the starting node of the main track. If you built the spike or the switch track segments differently than how I showed in the tutorial, the names might be different for you. So the names you see right here just reflect how I built them. We will also change the transition duration to 2 seconds, and we will also adjust the start and end weights of the animation. This part is up to y'all, so customize these settings however you want. We are done with this action, so click OK. Alright, time for the third and last trigger. This trigger group will essentially reset the switch track by moving the S-bend back to where it was before once the train passes by into the rest of the layout. Click Add Trigger. In the Settings tab for the new trigger, change the trigger type to On-Train Exit Segment. Now, remember what we named that straight piece from earlier in the Advanced tab? In the Add Segment tab, right there on the screen, put whatever name you named that straight piece from before. Earlier, I named that piece STRT, so I'm going to put that name right there. Then click OK. Go ahead and open the trigger group folder that we just made. It should be at the very bottom of the list, and then click Add Action. Again, we will need to make multiple actions in this group, so watch carefully. In the first code line, which has an index of 0, set the action type to wait and the duration to 1 second. So essentially, this line of code makes sure the train clears the straight segment before switching the track. Using the Add Action button, add another line of code. This line of code will have an index of 1. Set the action type to Evaluate Expression. This line of code will essentially become an if statement that tests if the train has passed through the straight segment before. In the Expression tab, write pass == 0. Again, if you named the variable from before a different name, use that name. Here I named it pass, so I will use that name. Next, enable the branching option. In the Branch Action tab, set the index to 5. Essentially what this code does is if the passed variable is equal to 0, it will execute whatever code is in index 5, and then resume the rest of the action code. We will cover more of this in a bit. Add another action line, which should have an index of 2. Set the action type to Evaluate Expression. This line of code will reset the switch track train detection once the train has passed through a second time. In the Expression tab, put a 0. In the Set Variable tab, put pass. Again, whatever name you assigned that variable from before, use that name. I used pass in this tutorial, so I'm going to continue using that name. Add another action line, which will have an index of 3. In the Settings tab, set the action type to Move Part Group. This line of code will move the S-bend back to where it originally was. This will connect the starting segment to the main launch segment. Therefore, we set the moving end to dynamic.sbend.start, which you can see right here. Next, we need to set the target end to static.starting.end, which you can see right here. This code will move the starting node of the S-bend segment to the final node of the starting track. Again, depending on how you built the ride, the names might be different for you. The names here in the video just reflect how I built them in the tutorial. I am also going to set the transition duration to 2 seconds, as well as adjust the start and end weights of the animation. Again, like before, this part is up to y'all, so you can customize these settings however you want. When you are done, go ahead and click OK. Alright, now we are going to add yet another action line, which should have an index of 4. Go ahead and set the action type to finish trigger, so this line will effectively stop the code. Lastly, add one last action line, which should have an index of 5. Set the action type to evaluate expression. This line of code will simply modify the pass variable so the track doesn't switch prematurely. Again, this line of code is executed by the if statement code from before, from line index 1. You want to make sure that the index set in the branch action line in the previous part of the code matches the index number of this current code. Here it is 5. In the expression tab, put 1. In the set variable tab, put pass. Again, whatever variable name you used before, you will use that name here. As I use the name pass, I will put that name there. And then when you're done, click OK. So now your switch track segment is finally done. Click restart at the top and you should now have a working switch track. Alright, so this section of the video is simply dedicated to helping you fix any bugs you might encounter. One of the biggest bugs you might encounter is if the variables you use are not the same name. Check to make sure that the variable names that you use for the track and code match in the action list. Another bug you might encounter is if the train is not leaving the station. So like in the video here, my train is not leaving the station even if I click the restart button. In order to fix this issue, we need to check if we have a block break segment on the main coaster segment. So if I look around the track, so if I fly around here, you can see that, oh wait, this purple part, there's no block break. All I need to do is just go back to the coaster editor, make sure I select the right part and the right folder group, and just add in my block break. So as you can see right here, I'm just going ahead and adding my block break. So here, I'm changing the segment to break and enabling the block section mode. And now my train is moving. So here, we can just see like, oh yep, the train's moving, the switch track is switching, and we're all good now. So another little thing that might happen is if the train doesn't fully quite make it through the layout. So if we go ahead and watch the little time lapse I made, yes, I know, another time lapse, the train doesn't quite get up over the hill, even with the swing launch. And then you can see the switch track kind of breaks and the train defies all the laws of physics, but that's okay. It's really not okay. So in order to fix this issue, we actually have to modify our launch segment. One thing you can make sure is that the launch speed is fast enough to make it through the layout in one pass. So here I figured that 50 miles per hour, that should be enough speed to get the train up and over the hill. But now I need to weaken the acceleration of the launch. We do this in order for the train to get launched over the hill the second time it gets launched forwards, but not the first time. So yeah, there's not one set speed or one set acceleration you should use for your coaster. You will have to kind of adjust it and modify it. But yeah, my coaster can now make it through the layout since I have the correct settings. Hey y'all, hopefully this tutorial helped y'all out a little bit. Again, check all the resources I have left in the description of the video. If you need any help with switch tracks or with the game in general, feel free to join the Ultimate Coaster Discord server. We have several people there who can help you if you have any issues with the game. It also is just like an Amazeball server, so you should totally join regardless. And lastly, make sure to check your device's app store frequently for any updates. And again, thanks for watching.